only person I know who earned all of the certifications. This guy, Alteryx ACE, um, data analytics master, martial arts master. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and talk. Okay, so Matt, where are you from originally?
So I was born and raised in Chicago suburbs. So grew up Chicago sports fan. Ended up moving to the Milwaukee area to go to college. I went to Marquette University. I actually studied communications and worked in media for a while,
Yeah, I
and
saw that.
found work. Yeah, found work in media. Worked in media for a while before kind of shifting into data. And but regardless of that time, I still stayed in the Milwaukee area, and I'm still there to this day.
Yeah. So when you were going through school, what you said you went to school for communications. Did you know that that's what you wanted to do?
Um, what my goal at the time was I wanted to work in sports, and I didn't necessarily know in what capacity. So I originally thought, okay, I want to be like a play-by-play announcer, radio announcer, anything in that ecosystem. So whether it was online, on air, behind the scenes, I didn't care. I just wanted to work in sports. Like I thought sports is the coolest thing. I thought having a job in sports was awesome. Like if that's your life, you get to go to games, you get to go to live events. Like what's cooler than that? And I had the opportunity to work at ESPN in college. I got the
What?
internship at Bristol in Bristol, Connecticut. To this day,
Wow.
still the most difficult interview process I've ever had was to be an
Really?
intern at ESPN. Yeah, it was 5 interviews. They were all at least an hour long, and they tested you on your knowledge off the top of your head. They tested you on your ability to research things with a computer, so like open book, closed book, and then
Yeah.
they tested your like willingness to work under pressure. And I had to talk to a countless number of people. It was very intense, but it got me the opportunity to work at
Wow.
ESPN. I got to work on like Baseball Tonight and ESPN News and all these shows and be around all these on-air talents. And it was amazing. Like I thought
Did
it
you
was the
meet
coolest thing
the
ever. Like
Did you meet the Schwam?
I did,
Did you meet
yeah.
Chris Berman? Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I met the Schwab. He was actually one of the first people I met because there was like an intern luncheon, and he like gave the like guest speaker, or he like the featured speaker, and he like
Wow.
introduced himself to all these people, and then he did a round of Stump the Schwab, which was a college game show that I created for the local TV station where I went to school. I wrote a
What?
version of Stump the Schwab, so
Oh
I was like a
man,
big fan of the show, and I actually got to
that's so
meet him. I
cool.
told him about this, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And so we actually did, as part of the intern luncheon thing, we got to do like a Stump the Schwab thing, and he was actually on stage asking questions, and it was like, game, and it was like a panel, and it's like all these people like know sports, and at the time it's one of those things where like you think you're good at something, and you are good at that, but then you're in a room with people that are also really good at that same thing, and then you figure out quickly like, where am I in this group of people that are all very
Right.
good?
Yeah.
And I realized I was not as good as I thought I was, because
Wow.
they were like the topic was, it was like a panel, and it was like an elimination style where like he gave the question like, name any quarterback that was drafted number one overall in the NFL draft. So you could name anybody you wanted, and
Hmm.
then so you can go like Mike Vick, and then it would
Yeah.
go to the next person, and then they would just have to keep going until it got to the final person.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah,
That's
and it
crazy.
got to like 25 guesses correct, and then it got to me, and I just threw out a ridiculous answer because I didn't know anymore. I was like, I knew all the obvious ones, but then like they're starting getting to the 70s and 60s, and these are people
Oh,
my age, like 19 years old, that like know all this stuff. And I was and then Schwab, like I lost, somebody else won like a couple questions later, and then Schwab goes, okay, that's great and all, but you guys missed boom, 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 just like railed. And I was
wow.
like, and it was kind of like my first real experience around people that like, you think you're good at something, but there
Yeah.
are people that are way better, and there's generally like that one person that's like, this is like the person. Like this
Yeah.
is the final stop, the end boss of it. So I was like, that was kind of my first experience with that in the sports
Wow.
world. And then eventually we got into the data world. I kind of experienced similar things. Like I got good at data, and then I started being around certain people where I was like, oh, this is kind of like the end boss of end bosses, where
Yeah.
there's like a data question where like I'm pretty good, but like yeah, my answer is nowhere near as good as that one.
I
And
had that. I had that experience. Like I had that experience
yeah,
when I was at a company, and then I joined the company that you worked for, and I was like,
yeah,
"That's the guy right there," because I was like, I was the man, and then I went there, and I was like, "Man, I don't
yeah.
know Jack. This is crazy."
Yeah, it's kind of like a thing, and then you just kind of can appreciate like, okay, I know my stuff, but then you kind of get to the point where like everybody is good. You all kind
Mhm.
of bring different stuff. You bring different things to the potluck. Like
Yeah.
everybody contributes, and usually somebody's a subject matter expert in something, or you can learn a little bit more about this particular thing from that person, or that particular thing from that person. Sometimes
Yeah.
like it's the same person, but like quite often, like there's going to be things that that I don't, or there's things that
Right.
you've practiced that I haven't practiced. Um, and it's just an opportunity to learn. And like, as long as you have that growth mindset of like, hey, I need to learn, or there's always something to get better at. And why not learn, be around people that know their stuff, and you can just pick up
Oh
things
yeah.
and
Yeah.
carry it with you, whether it's self-taught or somebody showed you. We're all at different points in our journey. Just, I think it's just important to realize like, hey, there's always somebody better to learn from. And as long
Oh
as you have
yeah.
that learning growth mindset, you're gonna accomplish a lot.
Yeah. So, how long was that internship?
It was a summer. So it was the summer of
Summer.
2008. It was just 3 months. And I
All
worked
right.
in the research department, just looking up stats and databases. My first
Stat boy.
chance. My first time working with a database, my first time working with stats,
Oh,
and the first time I had a job where I was like excited to go to work. I was like, this is
wow.
awesome. Like, and I work nights, so it'd be like I got to sleep in till noon. I got to go to work at 3 p.m. I got off at
Oh yeah.
11. I go home, get a
Yeah.
late dinner, and then I wake up at noon. I was like, this is the best life. I want to do this the rest of my life. This is what I want to
Yeah.
do. This is what I want to do. And
So,
then the economy crashed, and then they didn't hire
oh yeah,
interns,
that's right.
and they didn't hire interns, and I was like, oh, because that was my plan. Like my plan was I was
Yeah.
just going to go work there after school, and then they're like, yeah, we're on a freeze. So I had like no backup plan.
Oh,
I didn't like apply to any jobs because I was like, yeah, this is gonna be my plan. This is my plan A. I have no plan B
yeah.
because this is my plan. Um,
Yeah.
and then and then the job freeze. So and then I just ended up finding stuff local in the Milwaukee area, and then just kind of did like the hustle grind culture thing where you have like 5 jobs and you just kind of do whatever you need to
Wow.
do to survive. Doing media jobs and working like fast food and doing kind of whatever I need to just kind of pay bills. And
Yeah.
then and I just got so far into that stuff that by the time the ESPN thing rolled back around, I was like a cycle or two um, beyond like the intern classes. So like it was
Oh
just too far
wow.
gone, and
Shoot.
it was gone, and then yeah, just but I ended up liking what I did for a long time in data and or in the media here, like
Hmm.
working at the radio station, working at the TV station, working at the newspaper. Um, I loved it. I loved my time there, but it was just like anything else. There was a new chapter to write, and felt like data was the next step in my career, and
Yeah.
you know
So, how did you get that? I know that you said that when you were in your internship, that was the first time you
yep.
worked with databases. So,
Mhm.
what was the thing? Was the catalyst for making you go? Oh, you know what? I think I want to go into this totally different thing.
Yeah, so I knew some people that, including my brother, who had used that worked in data like
Hmm.
professionally, and he had used a tool called Tableau, and I had never heard of it, and he introduced it to me. And from there, what I ended up doing was towards the tail end of my time in journalism. One of the things I was doing was taking that stats background from like ESPN and stuff, and I would write these blog posts about like Brewers playoff odds, Bucks using kind of data I was able to research on my, but then using Tableau. I ended up using Tableau Public to build out these dashboards, and ended up creating a profile and use Tableau to like do these data visualization help. And that got the attention of local firms that were do Tableau for us. And I didn't realize that, you know,
Hang on.
career in this, or that I could career.
Hang on a second.
And
you started breaking up, and I don't know if it's your
Okay.
side or my side. I was like, oh, maybe it's weird because I have, fiber, so it shouldn't be my side, but oh, it disappeared. You know what? Network connectivity, sometimes there's an issue. So we're gonna wait and see what's going on here. He'll be back. Hopefully he'll be back. Let me see if I can message him. Matt, where are you? Here we go. Hey.
Might have probably on my end.
Yeah, you're a lot clearer now.
Good.
So okay, so the last thing I got was that you, like your brother,
Yep.
had some experience, and then all of a sudden you sound like a robot, and then something.
Yeah. So he introduced me to Tableau. I ended up using Tableau to supplement articles I was writing for the Milwaukee Journal, to write blog posts about like playoff odds for like the sports teams. So I built out all these Tableau public dashboards using what I just Googled on my own, with the kind of sports knowledge that I had, and writing these like niche stories using Tableau. And then and then some local firms reached out to me and were like, "Hey, do you want to do Tableau for us?" And ultimately, I was like, "No, I kind of like doing what I'm doing." But then I reached a certain point where I was like, I think the data career could be better for me long term. So I ended up getting an opportunity doing like a data visualization type job, and then that data visualization type job, I ended up learning Alteryx, or being introduced to Alteryx at that job, because somebody that was in the Milwaukee area that did Tableau also did this thing called Alteryx, and I didn't know what Alteryx was. And prep your data. I was like, oh my god! And then Alteryx, I like never looked back. Long story short, a few months later, somebody reached out and was like, hey, there's an opportunity full time doing Alteryx, and I had been doing like little POC stuff, doing like fantasy baseball stuff, and like a little thing work at like, nothing official. And you can do this full time. I was like, I did that. I look back and
Man, you're breaking up again.
All right. Let me see if I can switch to another device. Let me switch to another device. Hold on.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting once he gets back on here, but it's interesting because I always find it interesting the ways that people get into or got into data. Sometimes it's like something completely out in left field, like what in the world, where did that come from? Sometimes it's where you're doing something already, and then your employer says, hey, you want to use this tool, and it's like, I don't know what that tool is, and then that's an opportunity for you to up your skill set and bring value to your employer. So I thought that was pretty interesting how he got into data visualization and then it's Alteryx. But yeah, Jeremy, it definitely wasn't my side. So he's working on it. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't know how long it's gonna take. So hey, how about a commercial break or like quick break? my experience of getting into data is interesting too, because I was in the Air Force. I did mostly in the Air Force. I did maintenance, aircraft and missile maintenance, and I saw a. I'd been at a base for a long time. It was almost 10 years, and then I saw an opening at another base for, it's like a special assignment, not really special, um, but it was something different than what I was doing. So I was like, you know what, that looks interesting, and so I got the job. And then after being at a base for like 10 and a half years on the dot, actually, then I'm PCS, or permanent change of station, down to Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi. And it was my first data job. So it was a headquarters that was involved with the oversight of all non-flying technical training. So like basic training, and then like after basic, you go to learn how to do your job in your career field. And so my job was to track these career field pipelines, the training pipelines, to see their shortfalls, and try to figure out why they're not meeting their goals. Because inevitably there was some handful, up to like maybe 10 or 12 different career fields, that just weren't meeting their goals. And I had to find, the root cause. And so first time I was working with a database, using a lot of Excel formulas, pivot tables, using PowerPoint for visualization. That was 70 slide deck every quarter. Not ideal, but it's what I had at the time. And I said, you know what? I want to do that when I get out. I want to do that on the outside. Not that I was in prison or anything, but um, I was like, that's something I want to do when I retire. And so I ended up doing that. But hey, Matt's back. All right. What's
Thanks.
going on?
Hey, man. Yeah. So this is why I have two internet.
No.
I got one that's like my. Yeah. No. Thanks for welcoming me back. And where would we like to pick back up?
Yeah. So, okay. So you started working in visualization, and then you were introduced to Alteryx.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
then, what was the thing that made you go, hey, you know what? One day I want to earn all the certifications that Alteryx has to offer.
I think it was more just to like see how far I can take something. I had it, and it was one of those things of like, well, how far can I go? So like right when I started using it, they had just come out with like the designer core cert,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I want that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been using Alteryx for like 3 months, and I took it and I did not pass. And I was like very upset, and I was like, I'm good at this. What, like, this exam is dumb. And
Oh man, you're freezing up.
and I just like doing the weekly challenges, and it was and just keep pushing myself, because like I would do stuff and I'd be like, I'm good. They come out with like the advanced certificate I can't solve the first time, and this was the way to like I'm trying to think. This was just a way to just get better. Let's see.
I feel like I'm getting the majority of what you're saying, but it's like
Yeah.
you
Okay.
just keep freezing up.
Okay. I'm on internet number 2 now, so hopefully this does it. Yeah, no, I just had this desire to just push myself, see how far I can go. see what it takes, and just understand that like falling down, failing an exam is just a step. It's not a destination. It would hurt the ego a little bit. You know, I'd be a little embarrassed or a little frustrated that I didn't get the result I wanted. But I just was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just going to find a way to get it done. You know, got advanced, and then once I got to advanced, I was like, okay, well, expert's sitting there. I don't know many people that have it. What's it take to get it? And then I was reading the exam stuff, and I was like, okay, I got to study for like 6 months, and studied for 6 months, took the exam, and I didn't pass by like one question. I was like really close.
Brutal.
I was like, yeah, I was like really close. I was so frustrated. I felt like one of those like deer in headlight things, because that night I had a very distinct memory of this. That night I was going to a friend's what is it, the rehearsal dinner, like a wedding rehearsal dinner. Like the next day was the wedding, and I just like for the first half an hour, all I could think about was like the mistake that I made, and like I know exactly the mistake I made, and I was just like, oh my god. And I was like very hard on myself. And then with the expert exam, you can't take it for 3 months if you don't pass it. So it's not like you fail and you're like, okay, I'll just take it again in a week. You got like 3 months. And I was like jonesing. I was like, I just spent all this time studying. I want to take it like right now. And it's like, I got to wait 3 months. And then you just got to have this linger over you. And I was like, all right, well, I just got to drill and study and practice. But then like every time I would think about studying or practicing, it would remind me like, oh, I just messed up. And then it was just like, all right, you just, like anything else, you just put your head down, you just get your hours in, and you know, you just do what you can. And then ultimately got to the point, I got to the exam and I was good, and then boom, I got it. I got the results I wanted. And then from there I was like, well, if I got this one, let's just get the rest. How hard can the rest be? This one took me like 6 months and change to study for, because like I don't use spatial, I don't use predictive on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
But they're on the exam. And so I was like, all right, well, okay, server, sure, why not? Sure, why not? Micro credentials, sure, why not?
Man. I don't know what's going on over there. Oh, Jeremy, he says 70 page slide decks. Yeah. Yep, that was my life. I was the only analyst in that unit. And so then every quarter, at the end of every quarter, or like after the quarter ended, for that first 2 or 3 weeks, I wasn't allowed to take leave.
All right.
So, hey, are you back?
Yeah. I am back, but I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do a full proof. I'm gonna go for my phone, because right now my laptop. Yeah, I'm just gonna go for my phone, because that I can use data. I've got unlimited data, so I will be there in just a second.
All right. Yeah, so at the end of the quarter, I'd have the people who did it before me. It took 2 people to do this process, to get all the data, do the research and the finding root causes, then build out the 70-page slide deck. Yeah, and then present it to our general, who's a 2-star general, so that then he could present it to his boss, who is the 4-star. And I took over this process, and it would take people like, I think it took them like 6 weeks to do all the stuff, and I automated a bunch of stuff and then turned it into like a 2-week process. And then but then still, like, if I wanted to take leave, no, or PTO, whatever, leave. I was in the military, so like, but yeah, if I'm going to take some time off in that first couple weeks of the next quarter, I was not allowed because I was the only analyst. So yeah, that was my life. All right. Uh-oh. He was Tim, are you still out there? What do you mean how people gain appreciation for data? What are you saying on that? Matt's in the it's interesting. He's in the studio, but there's no camera, no mic. Let me see. Hey, is anybody out there? Anybody still out there? Man, we're having technical difficulties. It happens. Anything that's made by people will inevitably fail. So, here we go. He's back. Are you back?
All right. Take 10.
Okay. All right. So I asked him a question. He got back. It says, if you're not a data analyst and you gain an appreciation for the value of good data when you need it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So on that one, I would say like when I first got into my gig at that headquarters down here in Mississippi. Down here I say because I'm here again. It was interesting because like I didn't know, it's like, man, I don't know anything about these career fields. But I sure as heck found out a lot about them just like researching why people are not why they're not meeting their quotas. Why are they not meeting their goals for the number of graduates? So I don't know. You were out, I think, the first time, and I was talking about my first analyst gig, which was in the Air Force down here in Keesler Air Force Base, Mississippi, and so it was I was a training analyst. So each career field had goals for how many graduates they wanted to have each year, and then they would predict how many they would have each quarter. And so then I had to go look at the actuals and then look at the predicted and say, okay, why was there a difference? And sometimes it's because sometimes it's bad scoping. Sometimes it was a bad number. Hey, you're not recruiting enough people. Sometimes it was just like real life. Like one of the ones that was always every year they're under they graduated the amount way under what they projected, and that's pararescue. And so that's the Air Force, like special forces. They're like combat medics, right? You got to be a little bit fast. You got to be a little bit strong. You got to be a lot smart. And so they would put like 2,000 students in day one, and 3 years later get like 4 or 5. And the majority of the issues of people washing out in the first 6 weeks, lower leg injuries. You know, lots of running, lots of physical toll.
Sure.
It's San Antonio. It's hot, man. I went through basic training. You know what? 30 years ago, last week, 30 years ago, August 2, that was my first day of basic training.
Wow.
But, Tim says, data is the lifeblood of business, garbage in, garbage out. That's true. You know, we were talking about AI before we came live. And we're talking about, you know, people trying to get the ROI, out of AI and garbage in, garbage out. All right, so
Yeah.
where were we? So you're like, you know what? I got this. I got this expert. I'm just gonna push myself, and I'm gonna
Yep.
go ahead and get this like spatial and the
Yep.
predictive and all that. I'm pretty sure we were working together when you got the expert. So it was like
Yeah.
after that, you're like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, why is
Pretty
this
much.
man not an ace? Why is he not an ace? But I mean, you are now. So
Yeah. That's, there's a lot. There's a lot to being an ace. I mean, it's not just
mm,
technical ability or professional accomplishments. It's a lot of things. I mean, it's giving back to your community, being an
mhm,
ambassador, contributing in unique ways. Like just because you're good at a task doesn't necessarily mean that you're uh, you know a good necessarily representative of that. Like they're
right.
the program that I've learned is it's very well rounded. I mean, people in the program are very well rounded. They're not necessarily just good at technical skills. They're good at building out communities or relationships or being an evangelist or helping others and being a good community member.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about the good data, um, there's an anecdote that comes to mind for me with that where there are industries and there are professions and there are certain things where good data or having access to good data is life or death in the sense
Mm,
of survival. um, you know you can speak to experience in the military. An example that comes to mind for me, not life and death, but certainly a matter of staying in action or not, is the sports betting ecosystem.
mhm,
So the sports betting ecosystem functionally is an information game. And if you can have better data than the books, have better projections, or be faster, like you have the same information, you're just faster, you will win. You will win. And the thing is, books know this. And they know, and their algorithms know what type of player you are based on the type of bets you make, where you
mm,
make them, how much you bet, and things like that. Because they is, and and you get punished for that, and they can tell if you're using good projections or you're using garbage.
wow.
Um, and it's prevalent. Like I mean, I've been doing that on and off for recreationally for like almost 10 years and have been a winning player in that entire time at every place I've been because I know where to get good data. I know how to clean up data. I know how to organize it. I know, and it's not as much just procuring it, but it's like the business intelligence concepts. Like, okay, sure, you have good data, but how do you use it? What actually matters? What doesn't matter?
Mm,
Uh, where can you use that to make a decision? And that's kind of like the core tenet of business intelligence. Like you have data, you
mm,
have information, you have all these systems, but like what actually matters? What is your objective? And how can you use this information that is at your disposal effectively and
yeah.
time sensitive? So like you have a window to do this. Now, there are certain shops or places that have like automation or APIs that have all these triggers set up that like auto trade. But I'm talking about like as a human being that has to like look at data, clean it up, organize it, and do it. My first experience with that was sports betting before I actually had a data job because somebody showed me these concepts of like what business intelligence was before business intelligence. So like getting a job doing data visualization made a ton of sense to me because I understand those tenets of like data's everywhere. It can be sometimes overwhelming. What do you actually need to look for? What actually matters? How do you display what matters? And then when you have something that matters, what do you do about it? What is the actionable decision that you can actually use from this other than like it's a pretty chart or it's a useful graph or it's whatever? Like, are you going to make a decision on this? Or is this just a report that you're filing because you have to?
Mhm.
And those
Yeah.
concepts, like I understood at a very core level very early on in my career. So like working in business intelligence or data and analytics became second nature to me because I had these concepts like drilled into me prior to working in data. So then when I do it, for a job, I understand what that means. So like the questions that I'll ask or the questions that people will ask of me, I can get a pretty good sense of like, are they asking good questions? Am I asking good questions? Can the data answer what we're looking for to solve the core problem at hand? Or are we just trying to put together, a standard report for the sake of putting together a report that nobody looks at?
Right.
Um, so
Oh yeah. Oh, I can't tell you how many times, like early on, somebody's like, "Yeah, I need this report," and then I remember one time something happened with the reporting, and like the report was shut off, and then like 2 months later, my team got an email saying, "Hey, I really need this," and we're like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, I really need it," and then we dug in and looked at that workflow, and the data source, even though like they hadn't gotten the report in 2 months, right? But
yeah,
before that, like the data source wasn't updating. So it's like, yeah, sure, you got it, your email or whatever, but I mean, who's looking at it?
right.
If the numbers are the same every month for 6 months, what's it's like, oh, we had
Yeah.
a good laugh about that. Oh, so back to when we were talking about AI, Tim put this comment in the chat. He says, pair general knowledge, specific data makes a winning combination. What
Oh
do you think
yeah.
about that?
Oh yeah. That's. I mean, that's bread and butter. I mean, it comes up in data science, but it comes up in anything really. Like pairing subject matter experts with good data tools is everything. The quick story I have about that as a use case, my first real experience working with AI or machine learning was there was this vendor that I went to a training for, a 2-day training on like how to use the tool. It was a data science tool, and they had a use case. And in the room were data engineers, data scientists, and nurses, like nurses, like actual nurses, and then
Mhm.
us that worked in data. And their use case was like inpatient hospital data, and they wanted to figure out, the likelihood of a person basically being readmitted to the hospital. And they gave us
Oh,
this data, and they gave us this use case. Well, you had these data people that know how data works. You have these data scientists that know how to predict models. And then you have nurses that may or may not work with data in their job. They might just work with people and they don't, work with Excel or they don't work with BI tools or whatever. But the point of the exercise and this vendor was that the nurses will destroy all of you because they are pairing what they know about hospitals and what they know about patients and what they see in their experience, that when they're given data, they know what to look for and they know how to
yeah,
analyze it, even if they've not done that before or don't have the right technology to do it. The point of the vendor was like, this technology will be that bridge to get you there. And so when they ended up, and the goal of the course or the exam or whatever was like, you had it was a predictive model, and then whoever had the lowest like root mean square error or whatever regression metric they picked, and the nurses whooped the entire field so badly, and then they had them come up and explain what they did, and they're like, oh well,
yeah,
we know in this, like, we looked at this data and we're like, oh, we know people that are actually in this age. They listed age as a number, but we actually know that there are different age groups, that we need to put these in groups because we know that
wow,
certain symptoms or for certain types of exams, grouping matters, and certain age groups are going to be more impacted than others. There's no way you would have known that by just looking at data, but because they had that
right,
prior knowledge, they had that industry experience, that
wow,
power. So they explained what they did, And we're all looking at each other like, how in God's name did you know to do that with data? Like, we would have never come up with that. And they're like, oh yeah, because we see this stuff every day.
Yeah.
And then the vendor was like, this is the point of our tool. Our tool, if you put it in the right hands of data subject matter experts, they don't have to know technology. They will accomplish so much because they feel empowered. So that was an example of a vendor that met people halfway. But the other side of it is like, okay, say you don't have a tool like that. You pair a data subject matter expert of like how things really work at a company, like what customer relationships are really like, how things actually move in systems with people that know how data works, and that's a winning combination. So yeah,
Oh
to me,
yeah.
that's 100% true. And the story that I just gave was a perfect illustration of like, you can't just have data people working in silos and expect them to accomplish things without any type
Right.
of context. Yep.
Exactly. Context is key. So
Yep.
Tim, super active in the chat, man.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's very interesting that he's active in the chat because what? He's the next guy on this show. So he's like doing his homework. So what is
Sure.
that? Retrieval augmented generation. What is that?
It's a good question for Google. I don't think
Yeah.
I've used
You know,
it.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know either. That's a good one. I'm gonna look
Yeah.
that up. So yeah, you know what? One of the things that I do, I'm involved with, is like some mentoring of people who are shifting into data from other industries. And there, a guy I know, he worked for Costco for a while, and then he's like, yeah, he really wanted to get an analytics job with Costco. He ended up going into something else, different industry, but he's like, he worked the floor, he did inventory. He's like, there are so many different things that I know how to do already because that's retail is my thing. And so I tell people all the time, I say, every even if it's not the same industry that you're going into, every experience that you've had in the past is useful for the experiences that you're going to. And if you're staying in the same industry, you're so much more valuable because you already have the industry, the domain
Yep.
knowledge, right? Yeah, good stuff.
Yep.
So if there's somebody who was trying to break into data, in this job market, it's tough. It really is tough. um, what would you say, like, would be something? I get this question a lot from these people who are trying to break into data, into tech even. um, what is something that they can do to stand out above the rest?
Yeah. So I think what helps is having a vision or a goal of like what type of role or what type of job you want to do. So the data ecosystem is enormous. I mean, there's data engineers, there's data analysts, there's data scientists, there's business analysts, there's data analysts, there's program managers, there's product managers. It's endless in terms of roles. I think what can help is if you don't know what you like or what role makes sense to you, you can just do like a quick YouTube tutorial on like, just explain in 5 minutes what are these data roles? Like, what are your tasks that you work on? What are the things you do? And see what interests you. Like, which types of tasks do you like doing? Are you a visual person? Do you like building a report? Are you more of a process improvement person and you like kind of taking something that takes 2 minutes and I want to get it down to a minute 30? Do you want to predict a problem for tomorrow that, with data today? Or do you want to be responsible for, working on a team and like collecting, requirements to do the work? You don't want to do the work yourself, but you want to collect the requirements. So just get a sense of like what these different roles are and the tasks. And then I would just say, try and pick one and just learn one of the tools in that ecosystem. I wouldn't get very hung up on this tool or that tool. I would just say pick like a path, like business analyst, data analyst, BI. Pick one that you think resonates with you and then just pick one of the tools in that ecosystem, watch some YouTube, see if you can get a free trial, and just practice. And the idea is, and this is I've been asked this question a lot too, and my answer is pretty much this, which is get to a point where if you are being interviewed and somebody asks, what is your experience with X, or what types of problems have you solved with X, you can give a concrete example. So whether that's like a website portfolio or a particular use case, and be able to explain what you did and why you did it. If you can explain what you did and why you did it clearly, you are very far ahead, because a lot of people get very hung up on a lot of very tactical things, like how do you do this for loop, or how do you do a level of detail calculation. People get very hung up on a lot of these little tactical, like buzzword trivia type things, and less on tell a simple story about what was your problem, how did you approach it, and how did you solve it, and why did you do it the way you did. If you can do that, you are going to stand out, because a lot of the people I see that interview, and generally the people that do well, do that. The people that struggle get very hung up on very tactical, very specific tasks, but have a very hard time tying it into a story. And in general, when you're talking to somebody that's a recruiter or a hiring manager, they want a story. They want a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the beginning is, here was my problem statement. The middle is, this was my approach. This is the technology I used. And then the end is, and this is ultimately the result. And this is why I did it. If you can do beginning, middle, and end very clearly for someone to understand that doesn't even know technology, you're good. And that's really the secret on this stuff. Because, like I said, a lot of the people that struggle or like have a hard time getting that past that final point, I noticed that they get very hung up on a lot of these technical details that don't, like, they matter, but they don't matter in the way you think. And I would say that that's probably one of the things. So to wrap it up, pick a lane, pick one tool, and then just do a beginning, a middle, and an end, and just have like a very good story to tell during an interview. And that's it. And just get good at telling that story. And then you just got to tighten it up, or be able to tell it longer or tell it shorter, and just practice it. Practice it. Know it by heart. Get to your points. And because you often don't get feedback on interviews, like especially if you don't get picked. So sometimes it's hard to know where you messed up. But I would just say, if you just do that, you're going to be in very good shape.
Yeah, man, that's really good. That's really good advice, I think, too. Definitely. I've had several interviews where they're like, "Hey, this is how we're going to ask questions. We want you to state, the use case, the thing you did to solve it, and then what the impact was." And that's how you write your bullets, anyways. It should be how you write your bullets, anyway, because people want to know less what exactly you did, but they want to know more of like what the impact was, like So Tim answered the question, by the way. That's retrieval augmented generation is where you pair proprietary data with an AI model to get a synthetic output.
Makes sense.
Well, you know what? We're going to talk about this more next week when Tim is on the show. But for now, man, I wanted to just thank you for coming on the show and offering to tell your story and offering some really good advice. It's really good advice for people who are, trying to get into the field. And even though we had some technical difficulties, man, you made it through. And we're here.
And I would just say that advice I just gave, that is true for everybody. That is not just breaking in. That is if you want to advance in your career, you want to get a promotion, you want to get that next level. It's the exact same blueprint. The only thing that's different is you just tell a different story. Like
if you're trying to get a job, you're trying to get an entry level job, you're just telling a very different story than somebody that's trying to get a senior analyst role or somebody that's trying to be a VP or a director. But that beginning, middle, and end with a very clear through line, that is universally true. It's just, you just have to focus on the audience that you're interviewing with. What story do they want you to tell? And that is the real hard part, because that's not intuitive and you're not necessarily going to know that in advance. So you just got to kind of have a couple in your head ready to go. But that framework is true. So new job, trying to get a promotion, whatever, if you follow that template, you're going to be in good shape. So
good deal.
There you go. But thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate your patience with me, and good to see you again.
Yeah. So Matt, don't sign off because I still want to talk to you in the studio, but everybody else, I'll see you guys next week. We're going to have Tim Dickey on here. And I'm going to ask him, maybe he can say now, but I want him to explain it, why it's Tim and then space dot Dickey. I don't know. Hey, cool. Maybe it's like what it takes to make you stand out. But anyway, you guys have a great week. We'll see you next week. Peace.